I remember overhearing her pediatrician wouldn't tell me what they were testing for. And I was like, oh, God, please, like not this one, like anything else. We wanted to immigrate to Australia. We were actually in the process of it while I was pregnant. And they denied us entry because of her condition. The trauma is still with us. Luna stops breathing like 50 to 60 times a night.
Wow.
And sometimes you can hear her take pauses in between breaths. She just woke up having a seizure, and I didn't really understand what was happening. Becoming a mother for the first time also really opened up some childhood wounds from trauma that I had had from sexual abuse as a youngster.
What part has faith played for you in Luna's journey?
I think is so valuable, especially for moms with special needs kids, because none of us were ever taught how to deal with this. And it's painful learning it as you go along, because you're just trying to be a mom and you're just trying to be a human.
How can people learn the skills of like emotional regulation? So on today's episode, we have Savannah. And the reason why we've created the episode today, which I'm really excited to share this with you, is the art of expectation. And to discuss how, expectations for entrepreneurs, for creators, they can really create some inner confusion, some inner frustration when the picture in your mind doesn't fit reality. And like that can create a lot internally, right? And so Savannah's gone through a incredible journey herself, from a personal journey. But then also we're going to discuss around her child Luna and the journey that she's been on there, where although like they had this picture, her and her husband Rue, of what being a parent would look like. And that picture didn't necessarily meet reality. And we're going to discuss around that, and then also the gifts that were on the other side of that. So in order to, get a really good picture of the episode for today, I'm going to start by reading a caption from Savannah's Instagram. As when I came across this, I really felt it. And I think this will really lay the foundation for you listening in today. And yeah, just listen in and look for those gifts. Look how you can implement this into your life, how you can maybe look at the expectations that you've currently got, and how you can shift those expectations and realize that actually, like, once you can embrace all that is, you can embrace whatever comes. It's a superpower. It's a gift. You never think it will happen to you until it does. The past 48 hours have been the most devastating of our lives. I feel like it's a nightmare from my hard pregnancy, prem birth, NICU to now. And I just cannot wake up. On Tuesday, we got a call no mother wants to get. A call we were so anxious for and dreading. My world came crumbling down and I just broke down. You can only be strong for so long. And this was just the last I had to give at this point. I answered the phone with a lump in my throat. And when the ped said, "I'm so sorry, Savannah, but her results are positive," the world just stopped. Luna was diagnosed with a rare genetic disorder. There is unfortunately no cure, but we can treat her symptoms, which will be seeing a medical team for soon to start her treatment. My heart is absolutely broken, and I was so angry. I kept asking God, why? Why my baby? Why her? Why this? I think that's a great place to start. So yeah, what was your experience? Like, what was going on for you throughout that journey?
Sure. So it's quite hard to actually listen to that again, or to hear that again. I actually haven't, read that in a long while. It's something that I keep pinned to the top so that people understand that journey. And it's like such a good, how can I say, opening for someone to come across a page. In terms of her journey, very difficult. Again, like, in that post itself, what expectation we had, for a little girl, for our little girl, all came crumbling down. We first, like, we love to go onto Google and to check things out. That's just who we are. And I remember Luna actually got out of the NICU after 30 days. She couldn't like suck and swallow and breathe at the same time. So she was there for quite a while. And then we were back into the hospital again, like a week later, but we were still waiting for genetic testing. And I remember overhearing her pediatrician wouldn't tell me what they were testing for. And because she feared me going to Google it. And I overheard her saying to another doctor that this is what we're testing for. And I was like, oh, God, please, like, not this one, like anything else, but this. And I still said to myself, nope, it's not going to be like that. It's not going to be that way. There's nothing wrong. And then we got that call, and life did completely fall apart. I didn't get that. When you have a baby, there's this like expectation of, oh, you're going to recover with your little baby and you're going to snuggle, and it's amazing. And it's such like a blissful bubble. And we didn't have that, I went home without my baby for 31 days, 31 very long days. So yeah, it's been a journey. It's been a time that has pushed us far beyond our limits, but it's also shown us what we have to give, and what determination can actually do to a person if you really can push yourself to your full capacity.
Yeah, and when it comes to that expectation piece, what expectations did you have before having Luna, before having a baby? And yeah, how did that play out? What expectations did you have?
So I think, I had my son, so my firstborn. I had him when I was 21. So I hadn't really gotten out into the world yet and discovered myself and who I am and what I love. And so I had him. And then in the chaos of that, trying to find like, what do I want to do with my career? And becoming a mother for the first time also really opened up some childhood wounds from trauma that I had from sexual abuse as a youngster. Didn't grow up very, with everything that my kids have today. So it was a hard upbringing. And a lot of that trauma came out when I had Luca for some reason, my son. And so I was also at that stage, like trying to navigate this trauma and where does it come from and how do I deal with that? It's something like that I've said I feel that schools should teach their kids, and I feel as a generation, or as the generations come along, that we become more self-aware of it. But yeah, going back there, didn't really have a chance to find myself. It took me a couple years to find myself again, and then I was 27 when we fell pregnant with Luna, and it was like, it was amazing, and we were so excited, and like now I could, because when I was 21, I don't think I really took in pregnancy that well. So again, expectation for this next one with Luna was like beyond. And I had a condition while I was pregnant, actually, that I was very ill. I was admitted twice for dehydration and just kept throwing up like every day, all day, whole 9 months. And then she was born. And even when I was pregnant, we had these expectations, like matric or I don't know, like prom, I think that's what they call it overseas, and like that type of thing, wedding day, her having her own babies, and there's a lot of excitement that comes with having a girl. And when they gave this diagnosis and we actually understood the severity of it, all that was taken away. Yes, we do have our son and we're so blessed, but it's not the same. Each child is very different. And we had many expectations, even as a family. We wanted to immigrate to Australia, and we were actually in the process of it while I was pregnant. And after she was born, we had to disclose that she has Prader-Willi Syndrome, because you do health checks to get in. We already had our visas, like our visa invitations, just needed to get her passport sorted, and they denied us entry because of her condition. So dreams completely gone and shattered. And everything from there has felt very challenging. and very difficult to, it's so hard to change your perspective when you're so deep into it. And you sometimes can actually lose yourself completely in the grief of it all. Because yes, I haven't lost her, but I've still lost a lot.
Mm. Yeah, no, I hear you, and yeah, so relatable as well, because so many of the listeners who can relate to this in their own unique way, where there's an expectation that they have in their life, maybe for a business to go a way that they want it to go, maybe for a situation in their life, a relationship, something to unfold in a way that they have that picture in their mind of how it should go,
Yes.
yet then it goes a completely different way. Right? How did you navigate those periods inside of yourself, when this expectation of having a girl and going through that societal, can I call it a societal journey of naturally like being able to walk and then speak and then go to prom and then we walk down the aisle one day and all of those things, and then in that moment potentially that dream's crushed.
Yeah.
Like, what was going on inside of yourself during that time, and how did you navigate it?
So I also think that us as society have this like instant gratification persona going on. So with Luna, that had to take a very big backseat because she took long to walk, she took long to crawl, she took long to do things. Some things she did quicker, and she's done amazing in a lot of things. It was a lot of hard work. I have put in every piece of myself into her development, but it taught me who I am. That is who I am. I put everything in, and I know that it will pay off. But in terms of those expectations and someone having that same type of, how can I say, that same type of idea of what you thought it was going to be is difficult in a sense that you try. Let me put it this way. The dream is not dead. It's just changed.
Mm.
And it's that perspective that you have to try and get back to. Grief comes in different things. You lose a business, that's grief. You lose a loved one, that's grief. Something doesn't go a certain way, it's all grief. But grief is not measured. You can't measure it, but it does affect who we are. It affects our identity, it affects our perspective. And it's very hard to get back to where you were beforehand. But what helped me was I'm not going to go back to who I was because my life has changed. So I either need to change with it or I'm going to be left behind. And that was, I think there was like, me and my husband, we were devastated and the whole family was devastated, and like people tried to stay positive and, it's going to be fine. She is going to walk and she is going to do this and she is going to do that. And, we had to fall all the way down to be able to climb back up. And then there was some point, I actually think it was after her first specialist appointment. And I was like, I'm going to do this. I am going to make sure she walks. I'm going to make sure she crawls. I'm going to make sure she speaks. And I just started grafting. And a lot of myself had to take a back step, but I gained so much of myself. I now know that I can do so many things. I mean, my husband was away for 2 months now, and I was by myself with both kids, a 10-year-old and a 3-year-old with special needs. And I mean, just this last month alone, she saw 4 doctors. She had a hospital. She was admitted into hospital, and that was all while he was away. So, but I got through it. And because of that expectation not being met, it's made me grow into someone that I know can achieve whatever I put my focus on. So yes, those expectations are hard because I also feel like I'm someone who also has like a dream board. I don't visually put it down though, it's in my mind, but so I can shift it as we go. But I am a very like visual person. I am a planner. I love to know, okay, this is going to go this way. This is like, that was one of the biggest struggles for me, is nothing has gone the way we wanted it to. even when it comes down to finances, I mean, I wanted to do so much in my career and I haven't been able to even get halfway through that. My husband as well, we've all had to take, back seats. But as we go along and we find pieces of ourselves again, new pieces of ourselves, we tend to go, okay, this piece slots in there. Okay, this is how we can grow in that area because that's who I am now. And that's how we've navigated it, as we go along. And it hasn't been easy. I mean, financially, it's been one of the biggest strains. As a family, it's been, like finances are everything. It's your life, it's where you're going, what you're going to do, what you're going to give your kids, what your future looks like. That has completely changed for us. We've had to make tremendous sacrifices. We kind of feel like we're back at like age 20, just come out of school and you like living off a student loan type of thing, that's how we've been living, just trying to get ahead of time. But again, I've been able to advocate for her. And in that, we've raised a lot of money for her that went towards her medical expenses. I mean, the community that stands behind Luna is incredible. And it's so incredible to see how people have followed her journey, how I've had moms come on there and say to me, like, because of Luna's story, I was able to get through this. So it's been a beautiful, chaotic story and journey this far, yeah.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, there was two pieces I wanted to almost like double click on. Yeah, the one piece where you said the dream, I want to get this right. You said like the dream's not dead, it's changed. I love that. The dream's not dead, it's changed. Now, I don't know if that's the exact words that you said, but I'm pretty sure it was nearly there. And I've not heard that before. But actually like that really sort of resonated with me inside of my system, where I thought, yeah, we can have these vision boards, we can have these dreams, these goals, these aspirations, yet also being okay that these can change, right? And also it's very natural that you can have something that you're moving towards, and yet, which is important, that helps you get up in the morning, but also having this adaptability to change. What did you learn in the journey with Luna and also in your own personal journey around that adaptability piece, around being adaptable to change?
So I've always been quite good at adapting. What I'm not good at is control. I hate being out of control, out of a situation. And often we don't have control of that dream changing. And the narrative gets switched and we're like, okay, that way, when we were supposed to go that way. So I think it's very hard for a person who does plan and who is very goal driven. And in terms of, her journey and the change that has come from that, it's very difficult for me to let go. And with Luna, there are many instances where I have zero control over what's going on. But I have to adapt, and I have to adapt quickly. There was a situation with us, or an incident last year where Luna had multiple seizures. And me and my husband, us as a family, have never been through something so traumatic in our lives. I mean, the trauma is still with us, Luna stops breathing like 50 to 60 times a night.
Wow.
And sometimes you can hear her take pauses in between breaths. And she just woke up having a seizure, and I didn't really understand what was happening. I thought she stopped breathing because of the sleep apnea. And she just went limp. And you actually don't know what to do with yourself in that moment. And we were just like on adrenaline, and we were trying to get her to the hospital, and we're trying to get her to breathe and all of that. And then you switch into second gear, and now you're in survival mode. So that's been one of the things we've had to learn is like, okay, it can change within a second, and then we need to get this way. So you kind of are wearing two different hats. You're wearing your normal hat and whatnot, and then you're wearing your survival hat, because things change. So we've had to, as a family, be able to adapt very quickly. With her hospitalization, the other day, we had to adapt. Like, we had to make plans, we had to shift things, and we had to go how we needed to go. She needed to go into hospital, and I needed to stay with her, so I'm hoping that my son can also learn a lot from this, and his future wife can thank me for just like the way that this journey is also going to shape him into being more compassionate and more, because he also doesn't like to not have control. I mean, who doesn't like to not have control? But that is just life. Life changes all the time. I often sit and I'll drive in the car and I'm like, what if I die tomorrow? I won't know that I am, but it can change so quickly. So what am I going to do today to make sure that if I die tomorrow, I at least did something good for that day? And it's something that has always stuck by me is you are like your biggest cheerleader. I have always said to myself, I need to continue to talk to myself and go, no, we can do that. No, we can. And because the more you talk to yourself, you don't think it has an impact, but it really does. Because if I say to myself, I'm going to the mall later, I'm going to the mall later. It's the same thing. If I can tell myself that I will get through this and I'll get through the rest of this year and everything is going to be great, it will happen because I have the choice to make it happen. It's not easy. I mean, I can sit here and speak all day long about how things should go. But it's just that perspective shift that can do so much for a person's situation.
Yeah, so true. And that perspective is such a powerful tool that we all have access to in ourselves. Because some people call it perspective, other people call it the meaning we give something. And it's anyone can do this now, where you just tune in and look at your surroundings. And just take a moment, take a deep breath, and then take a moment to look for all the things that you don't like about the things that are around you. And it's I could pick it out now. I could go, don't really like the seats that are behind there. And, and you can always find a perspective, a meaning of what you don't like.
Yes.
Or you can ask a different question and just be what's the gift? What's the beauty in this environment? It's oh wow, suddenly my brain's looking for, look, we're in this amazing set. We've got these lights, you've got the cameras, we've got this opportunity. So that perspective, I just wanted to double click on that piece too, because we're choosing all the time. We've always got these choices, right? But in the survival part of our brain, because you touched on that, when we're in survival mode, what's your experience when you go into that survival part of the brain, that survival part that we all move into? And I'm curious, what's your experience when things are feel like life or death inside? What happens to your system? How do you navigate that?
Just to come back to what you were saying now about not liking a chair, that's also just the beauty in it. We're so unique. We don't like the same things, but it's going, that's great about me that I don't like that chair, or I do like that, And I think it's the same in terms of survival mode, right? So we're so unique, and me and my husband, when we're in survival mode, are completely different people, but we're not the same at all. And I've found I've had to shape that survival mode. So yes, it looks very mundane, and it's not something that you can easily shape. But I'd have people go I don't know how a nurse will come in and go, I don't know how you hold her down like this for them to draw blood, or I don't know how you do. And I'm but I don't have a choice. So you need to take charge of it. Otherwise, it will completely cripple you. And it has previously. I think one of the times I really struggled in that survival mode where I was just not okay was when she was having those seizures, because she went blue. We were literally, we thought she was going to die. We thought we are going to get there and they're going to tell us sorry. And that survival mode, I mean, I can replay it over and over again. But I've also tried to replay it in a positive way. So I've tried to go, yes, she did go blue. Okay, but next time I know what to do. Next time I'm more in control. If I had lost her, I would have learned something else. My life would have gone a different way. The journey would have been different. And that's the beauty of it as well, is that our journeys are never linear. They are very different, but there's so much to learn on the way there. I am incredibly grateful for Luna. I wouldn't change her, and it's things like that survival mode has become part of me. So I struggle terribly with anxiety, to the extent where I sometimes can't go out in public by myself because of that anxiety. And a lot of this journey, there's so much personal development in a journey with a special needs child or a medically complex child, on a spectrum this large, but also just in general, there's so much personal development that needs to take place. But again, you're in control of how far you get in that. I've seen moms completely fall apart and almost ignore the fact that they have a kid like this. They just accept it. And from the beginning, I'm like, I'm not accepting this. She doesn't need to do that. She doesn't need to not walk by age 2. She doesn't need to not speak. I'm going to try my very best to make that happen. And I have. And it's something that I am proud of myself for, for pushing myself through it. And you talk about survival mode. I think I'm in survival mode like most of the time. I don't actually, it's something that I struggle with. And me and my psychiatrist, we wrestle with this every time I see him is, okay, how much adrenaline are you running on now? But it's because things shift so quickly. And it's taken me quite a long time to realize that I am in control. And survival mode is just a different mode. Again, it's like that phrase about the dream. It hasn't died, it's just changed. And okay, it's changed. Okay, so let's read the script now. Oh no, I feel comfortable with that because I know where I'm going. And that's life. Life changes all the time. We know that, we've seen it in the media. Something gets posted online and within 5 to 10 minutes, it's all over, and that's just the rush of life. And it's going to rush past you no matter what. Luna's going to grow up no matter what. But how's she going to grow up? How am I going to shape her future? Because I want her to continue to be this determined, sassy little girl that she is. And it's also so important that the people that look up to us, which in my case is my children, that shapes them too. And you don't realize that you are silently mentoring so many other people, especially when you're on a platform. And again, I've seen it over and over again where moms are like, oh, I don't know how you do it. Like, you're so strong. Like, I'm only dealing with a sick toddler, and I always, and they can attest to it, the same message gets sent out. Don't put your situation is not worse. My situation is not worse than yours. They're both worse in our own ways. So, but you're still strong enough and you can still do it. It will never look the same. Even a child that's got the same condition as Leonard will never look the same. But their journeys will look the same based on perspective.
Yeah, that's it. And that perspective piece, I really appreciate you, opening and sharing, those some deeper parts of yourself in your journey too. Like, really appreciate it. I think it's helpful, right? Because there's perspective in anyone's journey, like whatever that is. And the story is like such a beautiful craft of how, and this is playing out in real time, like the expectations piece, the fact that sometimes, with this survival mode that we're talking about, it's not a choice. Like, life throws something at you like a curveball, and it's like you have to learn to deal with that, right? And with the survival mode, I think a really helpful thing that someone once shared with me, which now like embodied, is around like the regulation piece. It's like when something's a trigger hits, someone once shared, like, your trigger is your triumph. And sometimes life is going to throw something like this journey or some situation at you, And it's going to bring you into this survival brain, like the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that's responsible for
Yeah.
reasoning and planning, just like shuts offline. And then we go into this survival mode.
Yeah.
And a simple like regulation practice, like learning how to come back to your breath, like learning how to like slow down. And you can't often do this in the moment, right? When it's like you have to act, like that's survival. But and then it's how can people come back to regulation, right? So they learn how to, and I think this is we were having this conversation before, almost like the evolution which we're moving into as a collective consciousness, is how can people learn the skills of like emotional regulation? Because when we feel calm and safe and regulated and connected, make very different decisions
Yes.
than when you're in this state of survival. Like we treat other people very differently
100%.
when like you're connected and calm
Yeah.
compared to when you're in survival. Yeah, no, I had a very similar thing in what used to trigger it for me was in relationships, like intimate relationship. And when they say there was even any tension or an argument, a disagreement, I would physically feel it inside of my system and it would just shut down and I wouldn't be able to get my words out and I would just kind of like feel like mute.
Yes.
And that would be like my survival system coming on board. And it wasn't until I learned how to regulate that really changed. Like, I'm curious how throughout your journey, like you've been able to self-regulate, or what tools or what things do you use in your life and to help support your journey?
I'm terrible at self-regulation. I'm just going to be honest, but I've had to learn tools. I've had to, because medication can only take you that far. And again, I need to teach my children how to do this. And so I've had to do a lot of learning, and I was never taught this at school either. And coming from some childhood trauma, I started dealing with things like panic attacks, and mostly it was like in public because I didn't have control over the situation. And recently, I mean, geez, I think it was like 2 months ago, I had a panic attack again, and I hadn't had one in a long while. And I struggled to bring myself back to that center point again because I feel so out of control. But what has helped me is, and it's so funny, I think to myself, because you've got that 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can touch, that type of thing. And I found like it just never worked for me. Like I really struggled. And I started thinking, okay, maybe if or when I'm feeling this way, I can think of things that were supposed to go wrong and they didn't. So for one example is Luna's got or had hip dysplasia, and every year she goes for a x-ray for her back and her hips because they've got scoliosis issues because of the low tone, so the spine tends to curve. Her spine has been like miraculously fine throughout the whole process. We've never had a problem. Again, we've put in a lot of work for it, keeping that core strong and whatnot. Anyways, and she went for her annual checkup now. And last year we had the discussion of surgery. And if this hip dysplasia has progressed, and to the extent we don't know, but if it's progressed to an extent where she needs surgery, we need to speak about it. And going into this appointment, it was literally, I think, 3 weeks ago, I was so anxious. I was like, I kind of try and prepare myself. Again, there's this expectation. And I know that if there's no expectation, you won't be disappointed. But there is like, I do need to prep myself. I need to prep myself in some way, because what am I going to do if she tells me, no, she needs this operation, where am I going to go? And again, that's the planner in me. Like sticky note here, sticky note there. And we went for the x-rays, walked in, sat down, and she said, oh, you guys didn't actually need to be here because it's gone. And I was like, sorry, what? She's like, it's resolved itself. And I was like, so here I am thinking to myself, okay, we're going into this. We're going to talk about surgery. We're going to talk, it's a pelvic cast for 6 weeks on a 3-year-old. And it's a massive surgery. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, just Savannah, we're going to prepare yourself. This is what, and then you go in there and you're like, oh, I planned for survival mode for nothing, So in that instance, I'm going to use that going forward to go, that's where we were, potentially having surgery, potential severe hip dysplasia progressing and whatnot. But it didn't work out that way. So I try in those anxious states to go, it might not be that bad. It can be different. And that's what helps me in those instances. And it doesn't always work, again, because it's so difficult to be out of control over certain things. But the beauty is understanding how to, because when you are in that survival mode, like I've said previously, you become a different person. And you need to identify, okay, who is that person? What does that person look like? How's that person going to react? Like you said, speaking to people differently when you're in that mode. What does that person actually look like? Because you are going to shift between those people. You've got Savannah on a bad day, Savannah on a good day. What do those look like? And how do I get myself back to the normal Savannah?
Yeah, like the regulated
Savannah, the calm down Savannah, because it's also, dealing with a special needs child like Luna, emotional dysregulation is like her every day. So that in itself has also taught me, okay, so to recognize, because often we don't recognize it. We go, oh, what's wrong with me? Why am I like this? Why am I doing this? And we're so hard on ourselves. And society is terrible when it comes to those types of things. And she's taught me to recognize, because that's one of the biggest things I think is recognizing you have a problem. Recognizing, okay, I am dysregulated. How do I bring myself back? Because it is going to influence the next 24 hours, 48 hours, 3 days, 4 days. And what really helped me as well is going, okay, I'm just going to go to bed. And when I wake up the next morning, it's going to be a new day. And I try, and it's like it works every time. It's so weird. It's like I'm probably gonna have people going to nap at like 2:00 in the afternoon. Like I feel like I need to go and regulate myself again. But it's something that's always like, just having that blank moment where you're not conscious of anything, you're just relaxed. And often then I wake up the next morning and I'm back to who I am. But that can change again in any second,
Of course.
Half an hour into that, we could be doing something else.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and it's what's coming up for me when you share that is this, with there's like the stimulus and then response, right? So it's like all humans have triggers from past experiences that then trigger something inside, and then there's a response, which often say it's in a dysregulated response. Often you have something which could be hurtful to someone else, right? Just out of survival. And I think one of the amazing gifts that we can give anyone is giving our gift of connection, our gift of regulation, right? Because first of all, when we feel that inside of ourselves, like someone can sense it. Like they can literally pick up and be like, give someone else an opportunity to relax. So it's like, how can we have practices in our life which allow there to be a gap between the stimulus and response, ideally, or when a trigger arises, practices to bring ourselves back into a regulated, connected state. I think one of the best practices for me with that is literally just the breath. Like tuning into the breath and just really tune into the heart, tune into the breath, and like obviously there's many practices, but yeah, I mean that one has been really transformative.
It's a really funny area to be in. I mean, I've lost friends during this journey, because of who I was in survival mode. And I don't think some of them, if it's not that person's fault. If you're not in it, you can't understand it. But I think the more people who understand, emotional regulation, survival mode, that type of, and it all boils down again to personal development, and having those tools. That's why I also feel like in the schools and on social media, instead of, watching people unbox something, we should be watching things on how we can, again, get ourselves back to square one, because that in itself is so powerful if you can do that. I mean, I'm still working towards that, because I struggle to just breathe properly. Actually, last night, I actually got up and took a calming pill because I could feel my heart racing. And I was like, okay, if I can feel it, then I'm anxious. Now I'm anxious. So I needed to recognize that. And I got up and I took something because I wasn't falling asleep. So I went and I took something. And then I just sat outside for like 2 minutes. And again, I just took some deep breaths. And being Christian, I just was praying, and I was like, I just need some peace. And I mean, because I work as well, so I'm juggling quite a few balls during the day. And I was like, okay, I don't want to go into the week like this. And then I was also caught in this thing of, we always start on a Monday. Like everything, we always start on a Monday. But I've tried to change my perspective and go, but it's Thursday. I've still got like Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to get through before Monday. So why don't I just do it now? And so I catch myself often, trying to get back to that, and it's something that I do really need to work on, and that I think is so valuable, especially for moms with special needs kids. There's such a big, it can be a very lonely community. There may be a lot of us, but it can be very lonely. No one situation is ever the same. And I feel like this type of training, if that's what you would call it, is actually such a need, now just thinking of it, in the special needs medical complex space, because none of us were ever taught how to deal with this. We're learning as we go along. And it's painful learning it as you go along, because you're just trying to be a mom and you're just trying to be a human. And then you got to learn all these things all at once. And you got to be patient, and you've got to still try. Like, I have people going like, you must look after yourself. And I'm like, yeah, I'll get there, And I've had to stop doing that. I've had to go like, no, I'll get there now. Like, I'm going to do it now. And it's the same when I said to you, if you're going to go to the mall later, you're going to go to the mall later, because you're telling yourself that. So I need to tell myself, no, Savannah, you need to go and just do a little skincare routine. Just go and sit outside for 2 minutes, and that's teaching. And I mean, those things I've only learned through my own personal development, but it was hard. If someone would have taught me these tools, it would have been a lot easier. And so I definitely feel like there's such a gap and a need for that type of learning and training in that field.
Yeah, agreed. If there wasn't for the mentors and guides that have gone out and I've been able to learn from with those skills, it's like you're just lost, right? Because we're not taught them in school. Like, if we're taught all that we can from our parents, some of it being amazing, and then others, there's still being gaps, and these gaps need to be filled up. And so, no, agreed. I think that gift of emotional regulation, that gift of the art of being able to bring yourself back into regulation, like for special needs parents, but actually for everyone, for entrepreneurs, for creators, it's like there's challenges that arise. We naturally go into those survival centers. It's like, how can we draw ourselves back? So yeah, I'm curious, like, to go back into the Luna's story. Is like when I was, we were chatting before, and also, and just through looking at the content online, it seems like, yeah, there's this expectation for you as a parent of what that journey would look like. But and then also there was an expectation of what Luna's journey would look like with the special needs condition that she had. And that expectation, it seems like she's been doing so much better than you could have even imagined from like what was happening before. And I know there's still going to be challenges, but I'm curious, like, what part has faith played for you in Luna's journey? Yeah.
Wow. I would say faith has been the foundation. I remember, when Luna was in the NICU, me and my husband, we went for a coffee, and he said to me, like, God just said to him, there's something about her eyes. And when I look at Luna today, there is just something about her eyes. So they've never really given her an eye color because it's like a mixed color. And there's so much beauty in her eyes. And it also just got me thinking, like, she sees the most positive and beautiful things through her eyes. She loves everybody. She gives so much of herself to somebody. I mean, there's someone at church, and this guy stands at the doors where you can go in, and every Sunday without fail, she goes and hugs this guy. And there's a car guard as well at one of our shopping centers. Every time she sees him, without fail. And I always wonder to myself, like, what does she see? She doesn't see that she's got a condition. So that was one of the big things for me, is not allowing her to actually see that. Yes, you're different. And that's okay, because mommy's also different. And daddy's also different. There's no normal, like, seriously. And I think one of the biggest things in the beginning was I did go onto the internet. I did go, and that's one of the biggest things I've seen as well, is parents go and look for hope very quickly. Before, like, I even had a diagnosis, I was like looking, who's doing well? Like, is this really the end? You look for anything and you hold on to that. And I feel like Luna's pages has helped, I mean, in many instances, not even just kids with the same condition, is that her story has helped others to see that there is hope. And it looked terrible in the beginning. It was like, how is she going to walk? How is she going to do this? I mean, she didn't cry really as a newborn baby. And I mean, I've had a baby. Like, I've had my son. I know what it's supposed to look like. And it just looked so different. So for me, the first year was very hard. Like, very, very hard. We also, as moms, are terrible at this and shouldn't do this, but we compare all the time. And we compare our kids all the time. And I found myself, like, disliking people who had it better than me. And I think she was around about like 6 months. And I was like, Savannah, but they don't have it better than you. They've got their own struggles, but you've also got something so beautiful in front of you. It doesn't look like everybody else's story, but it doesn't need to look like their story. So there were many expectations, and shame, I feel sorry for Luna, because there was many expectations for her too. And I hold the standard quite high for her. And the reason why I do that is not to, like I said to you previously, I don't push her in an area where it becomes unhealthy. I push her until I can see, okay, she's reached it. Let's see how far she can take herself. So I'll push and push and push. It's like she pushes these weights up our driveway, and I'll help her till a certain point, and then she needs to do it on her own. And I feel with these kids, the first thing is that they'll never be independent. They'll never live independent lives. Yes, that's true to an extent, because their brain, between the brain and the stomach, that's switched off. So they've got something called hyperphagia. And hyperphagia is this extreme hunger. Like, if you haven't eaten for 6 hours and your stomach's telling you, listen, you need to eat right now, she feels that all day. There's different extents to it, and we try and manage it as we can. We don't know what extent she has for that, so already there's this, like, it's like doom and gloom. Like, it's going to be awful. But maybe it doesn't have to be. Yes, she might be hungry all the time, but it's also redirection. It's teaching her that, again, your dream has changed. And this is just something that we're going to teach her going forward, is we need to shift gears. Yes, you can't do that. Let mommy help you a little bit, and then you try and push just a little bit further, and let's see how far you can go. So there were many things that got to me in that first year: the walking, the crawling. I mean, my husband could even, I was crying all the time. Every time I saw a baby walking, I would cry. Every time I saw, because also, like, babies are incredible. Like, they are strong. Like, like when you see a child that physically cannot do it, there's a video on my page of what physio can, I reference what it can look like and then what it can look like. So always giving that perspective between the two. It can look really ugly and it can look really hard, but it can also look beautiful. She could potentially, just as an example, we used to try and get her to pull to stand. And there was some instances where she would just fall back down and then she would cry because she was frustrated. But then there were instances where she would fall down and we would laugh, because it was not a game and it was funny. And it just showed me, there's always a twofold to a situation. And I'm not out here trying to say that, it's sunshine and rainbows all the time, because it's not. But there's so much power in determination. Your grit and determination can drive you to do the most amazing things. We each, me and you, could have a race down the street. The one who's going to be the most determined is probably going to get there first. I'm not that physical, excited about physical activity, so I might not be determined, but, and that's the thing is, we might not be physically able to do it, but you can still be determined. She physically couldn't walk, but she was determined to do it. And we've seen that with her through and through. She's nothing what the Google pictures looked like. When you Google that, she is nothing like that. I actually went and gave a talk at one of the universities in Stellenbosch to the team that do physiotherapy and stuff like that. And I said to them, never, ever underestimate a child with any medical condition, because I can tell you right now, they'll come back and prove you wrong every single time. And it might not look like everybody else's. So again, it's that expectation. She needs to walk a certain way. Might not look like that, but it's still beautiful to see her walk, even if it looks different. So there was many times where I was like, oh, I don't know how she's going to do this. And also expectations on a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old, technically they don't carry that expectation, or they don't carry that load. You carry the load. So it's a twofold, where she'll get older, where she's going to have her own expectations. So I think the journey will change quite a bit, maybe we should do this in 5 years' time so we can, see where we're at. But that's just going to be the goal, because her life is going to look different. Her life is going to be harder, but I don't want her to be a victim of it. I want her to be an achiever. Doesn't matter what she's achieving, because we don't all need to measure how fast this one ran or how much money this person ran or whatever. Personally, what pushed her to be the best version of herself?
Yeah, that's beautiful, and I appreciate you sharing that, because it really comes back to that perspective piece again, and the expectations too of what you shared there is really, really interesting, because I'm curious of people who are listening in. It's where in their life are they holding a certain expectation on themselves that actually that expectation, it's important to have standards, but also with expectations, where are you putting unfair expectations on yourself?
Yes.
Where are you currently in your life have painted a picture of how it should be, where actually on the other side of it, maybe there's a gift, maybe there's maybe there's beauty, maybe in this story there's a Dr. Joe Dispenza, he talks about this, and he says that the overcoming process is the becoming process.
Yes.
Whereas as you start to overcome yourself again and again, which I think this story has really shown, that there's a becoming, right? There's an evolution, and sometimes the expectations or the pictures in which we put ourselves and we have actually stunt the growth. Whereas sometimes there's the gift, there's a reason, there's faith, there's something greater that is given a gift if we can see it. So that kind of circles back to there was 2 parts which I wanted to bring up, and it would frustrate me if I didn't bring the other part up, and because I think the listener, they're there's 2 parts, where's the other part coming? So here's the other part, and that is the actual question which I wanted to ask was about what parts of yourself you had to leave behind, or or die on this process. But also, like, when you share about that, I think to, to really sum up this whole episode, be great to also share the opposite sides of that. Like, what parts have been birthed? Like, what gifts have been given in this journey? Like, from whatever your faith is, something greater, like what gifts have come from this?
So I would definitely say patience has been one of the biggest gifts, is just having patience with the process and the journey. I've lost a lot of my personal self. So maybe the way I look is not what I envisioned. Haven't lost any baby weight, those types of things. Where am I in my career? I can't go and travel. I can't be in a higher position and go and travel right now. But it's also okay to not meet those expectations because something else was birthed. I mean, I, alongside Luna's dietitian, wrote a cookbook on recipes based on what Luna's diet can handle. So no sugar, low carbs. That was incredible. I've been on TV and radio and advocating for her and just educating people on special needs and even the financial side of things. Here in South Africa, it's difficult, for many families. And I mean, she costs us like 400,000 Rand a year. I mean, that's like a whole house in itself, and in that, dreams have had to change in terms of not being able to buy a house yet, not being able to do this, not being able to go on holiday yet, not being able to. So there's so many things that have changed, but it's given me so much to be grateful for. Grateful for a girl that inspires other people, that's my daughter. Us as a family have just grown stronger. It's teaching my son, compassion and patience and overcoming trauma. And, I'll say to him, she's got to have an injection every night. So you can just muster up the strength for like one injection every now and again. And just pushing him to also see that other people have it harder out there. There will always be someone that's got it worse off than you. You will never be the worst. And that also helps me to bring me back, is go, yes, it's hard. Yes, it's difficult and it's financially challenging and the mental load is a lot. I also carry grief in different phases throughout the year. It doesn't really ever go away because you'll go into the next step of, say, for instance, she should actually be speaking in full sentences. And then there's grief that comes along with that because she's not yet. But it's teaching him that even if it doesn't happen, it's okay. Let's again shift perspective. Always think of like a manual car, like let's just shift it. And there's so much beauty in seeing what comes out of a bad situation. There's always a lesson to be learned. And especially like with my faith journey, God has taught me the most incredible lessons, I mean, the fact that you could believe to the fullest that something is going to work out a certain way, and then it actually does. Having something to believe in, what doesn't matter what that looks like for you or who God is to you. Faith is everything. Hope is everything. I mean, I started a small side hustle as well to try and patch medical bills here and there, and it's a creative thing where it's got to do with like embroidery and stuff like that. And like people are like, where do you get the time from? Like, I don't actually have the time. I do it on the weekends. I do it at nighttime when I get a gap or whatever. But I push myself to do that because I want better for my daughter. I want her to be able to have her treatment. I want her to be able to live a full and happy life. Yes, she might not, again, just turning something into something beautiful is, yes, she might not live an independent life, but you know what? I think my mom wishes I could still live with her, maybe, potentially.
Yeah. Some days.
But I would love for her to be with us for the rest of my life. That there's no shame or sadness in that. It could look beautiful, and just seeing her as well blossom into, she's obsessed with like doctor things, and I'm like, sure, tell me you're a medically complex child without telling me.
Yep.
Walking around with her own little stethoscope at home, but just seeing her compassion and how that carries over. And yeah, my hope and dream for her is that this just catapults her into a total different world. And already she doesn't let a lot bother her. She just goes about her day. I mean, I inject her once a night. She's got to take all this medication. She's got to do her physio. She's got to do this and that. And she still just tries to go about her day, with a smile. So there is so much to be learned, and there's so much growth that can happen. And like you said, things that get birthed out of this. I was looking the other day, a teenager that passed away in the US, and she donated her organs, and that to me as well is just such a beautiful, as a parent, to know that gave someone else life, is just, it's incredible that, and when you start living like this and you start living that way, you start going, okay, like when you say, okay, I've got 10 Rand and this is what I can do with that 10 Rand. Same with the situation. Okay, this is the situation, but I can get that out of it. I can get that out of it. Yes, that might pull me down a little bit, but when you start going with every situation, you start looking, okay, what is the good out of it? Because again, if we just victim mentality ourselves and we constantly like utter to ourselves these bad things and these negative things, like I'm not enough and I can't achieve that, and why is life so hard and why can't I do this, that you start to believe these things, and it shapes who and what you are. So yeah, we are incredibly grateful for her, and she has literally been the biggest gift.
That's so beautiful. Yeah, well, thank you so much for sharing. Like, what I'm hearing there is like some of the gifts that have really been drawn out of the situation out is one thing that I've learned from this conversation is around the expectation piece, around that actually near enough all the time, like the reality doesn't fit the picture of our expectation, and that's okay. And then on the other side of that, there's gifts and there's lessons, and when we can really tune into whatever your beliefs are, like the higher potential, God, infinite, whatever you want to call it, whatever your beliefs are, and when you can tune into that, there's a reason that's being pulled into our life. And from there we've learned the tools of regulation and the importance of how you can move from survival back into a regulated state. The power of a community of people coming together.
Yes, 100%.
And supporting Luna and the movement, and how she's overcome herself again and again and again, and she's transformed in a way that again didn't meet the expectations. I think all of those lessons are so powerful for myself, and I imagine anyone listening in, that I really appreciate you coming on and sharing.
No, thanks for having me, and sharing her journey and her story, and putting it out there. And there's just so much to learn from other people's circumstances and from their stories. And so I feel like this is such an important like podcast and like series and things to put out there for people, because yes, the situations might not look the same, but the tools will look the same, and how you apply them is going to be the outcome of your situation.
Yeah, so true. And at this point of the show, just before we close out, we have a vault section where there's some mystery messages in the vault.
Okay.
And also each guest leaves a message at the end, and that all gets put into the vault. And then from there, at the end of the episode, we can pick out a one of the statements, could be from a guest or a mystery message.
Okay.
Reflect on that, have a quick conversation about it. And also it's great for the listener because they can also reflect on that, see where that's showing up in their life. And then you have an opportunity to leave a message at the end as well to share. So I'll just grab the messages. Yeah.
Okay, this one. There are infinite versions of you that exist in the quantum. which one are you courageous enough to step into? Unknown mystery message. Wow, okay.
What comes up for you around that statement?
I think it's more the version I would want to be of myself. There is a version of me that is, so one of the biggest things I'd love to do is to have a foundation for Luna, where, we gift like welcome packs with all sorts of things for kids with Prader-Willi Syndrome, maybe things that are useful, maybe like training on trauma and survival mode, and I think that would be one of the, if there was an infinite version of me, it would be, how would I want to say, a powerhouse, of supporting moms with special needs kids or medically complex kids, and having like a foundation where they can always come back to. And if they're looking, because you're so lost in the beginning. It was one of the things I really struggled with, was just I felt so alone, even though my husband was there, even though I had my family and community. And I mean, after that post that we opened up with went out, had so many messages and the things pouring, but I still felt so alone. Until I spoke to a mom who had been in my position with a child with Prader-Willi Syndrome. And that for me really set the tone. Not because of who she was, it was just being heard. And I feel like as a society, we want to be heard. We don't want to be ignored. And I think that would be the best version of me, would just be, able to push Luna's story to give people a better chance at making big things for themselves, or making, a name for themselves. Because I feel the stronger the parent, the more determined the parent, your child's born a blank page. They're nothing until you make them something, That's why those early years of development are just so crucial and so important, And you go on to supporting and mentoring and motivating the next generation of kids who come out like that, those parents. And like, these kids need to be like a movement on their own, for themselves. Change the health laws, to be inclusive of treatment and therapies and all of that, So I think if I could be anything, that's the word that comes to mind, is just being like a powerhouse advocate.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing and opening up with that. I mean, what a powerful,
yes, very powerful
question. There are infinite versions of you that exist in the quantum. Which one are you courageous enough to step into? I just think that's such a great way to end the episode, and I love your version which you're stepping into, and almost like remembering this moment, right, of that share, and when those survival modes come on, or when these feel out of alignment, it's like then coming back and remembering, it's like there's a version of me that can do that. And what this whole journey with the podcast and is transformation code. And I feel like that one of the patterns that you see is someone goes through a transformation themselves, and they notice all of the things which were challenging for them in that journey. And then you've gathered all that information, and the ones who are courageous enough are then able to create something which then helps others go through that transformation like smoother, right? Because they have a guide, they have someone who's been there, they understand, they relate, they can hear them. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy. It just means that you understand the roadblocks. And what a gift that your future self can back.
I think that the scary word there is infinite. Infinite, like there's no ending. And today there's infinite struggles, there's infinite challenges. And I think that word was like, oh, how am I gonna answer this? Because there's many versions of myself that some are like, okay, I can be 20% this, and I can maybe be 40% that, so I think that's quite it's a powerful question in terms of in a world where you could be anything, what would you be? And it's amazing.
On that note, I think we can.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Yeah, amazing.